My name is Hannah, and this is the House Party podcast from Ivory Innovations. We bring you the top entrepreneurs, researchers, and practitioners in the industry to shine a light on housing affordability solutions. Today, I'm joined by Joseph Ruiz, the co-founder and chief of architecture for the Madelon Group. Madelon helps streamline the development process and connect stakeholders to industrialized housing manufacturers. The Madelon platform not only utilizes machine learning to assist with site selection and underwriting, but it also integrates pre-vetted modular factories, helping to bridge the gap between housing providers and industrialized housing manufacturers. It is this innovative combo that led us to nominate Madelon as one of our top 25 finalists for the Ivory Prize last year. Today, roughly 4 billion people, about 55% of the world's population, live in urban areas. By 2050, the urban population is set to grow by more than 6 billion. The demand for dignified, affordable, and well-designed housing in urban areas is what the three Madelon co-founders have set out to address. The Madelon Group developed the Red Tech platform, which is a suite of tools to support small and medium-sized developers, from site analysis all the way to selecting a property management company and leasing up. The platform works in New York City, Los Angeles, and Denver, and is free to use. Once project development begins, Madelon has two pricing models, one for market rate projects and one for affordable projects. Something that makes Madelon particularly unique is its partnerships with offsite construction manufacturers. Offsite construction can contribute to higher quality construction, less waste, improved safety outcomes, and faster delivery. By connecting its customers with offsite partners, small developers can access the benefits of offsite and bring more affordable infill housing to our cities. We're so happy to have Joseph on with us today to tell us more. Joseph, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah, for having me. Very excited to be here.
So you've been in real estate and architecture for your entire career. And before starting Madelon, you were pretty deep into co-living. You and one of your now co-founders actually designed and built the first ground-up co-living building in Latin America called Casa Uno. What drew you to that space?
Well, I'm an architect by training. I studied architecture in San Diego. And ever since the beginning, I was always interested in the residential branch of architecture. At the end of the day, I think housing, I will argue, is one of the most effective tools to measure the functionality of a city. In this sense, it's like the most essential component of human civilization, having a shelter. So for me, working with that has always been very rewarding. So being conscious of this, we were always eager to work, and we had the opportunity to work in multiple residential projects in specific locations at one time. I don't think we ever worked on an isolated project. This helps us understand the context in which we were developing our concepts better. And in fact, these contexts became kind of like the drivers of our innovations in development. So the same thing happened with co-living. At a certain point in our practice, we were working on a shared living project in Mexico City that was going to be prefabricated. We were also working on a 4-unit project in Denver that was meant to be operated as a shared living model. We were doing several multifamily buildings in Tijuana and Mexico City, and we were attending all of these conferences about co-living in New York. And when at that moment, a developer in Tijuana approached us with a piece of land, and he wanted to do something sort of like different in this very interesting part of the city. So we took that piece of land and treated it almost as a housing lab. We also took, in 2013, we did a housing competition in Boston that we actually won first prize. So we took all of these learnings across our architecture career and we brought it all into this physical manifestation that was Casa Uno. So we treat it as a housing lab where we tested different models of housing. One of them was co-living, but we also did some micro units, some studios. We did a tiny house, and also it had this kind of like interesting community component. We had some communal areas where people could like gather and just have we created an all around like vertical villa where people enjoyed living.
Wow, fantastic. And so I want to learn about how you transitioned from co-living and this focus on co-living to founding Madelon. There are definitely some parallels between the two, like both co-living and what you've built with the Madelon platform tied to affordability, I think. But at the end of the day, co-living is different than the products that you now are helping developers build with Madelon. So what prompted that shift?
Yeah. I think co-living, well, it's an interesting approach that has been used for decades to provide more accessible housing. It's definitely not something new. It was not new back in 2018. It's not new now. It was something that has been used for a long time, but it was kind of like more institutionalized and formalized in recent years. Well, it's interesting. It ends up making sense or having more impact in certain markets. No, of course, New York is the place to do this because there are so many people and it's so expensive. A city that is so expensive to live in. So for us, it made sense to start testing it there. But even in our first approaches in this arena, we were always conscious that at the end, it was never about sort of like the community aspect of it so much, or the programming aspect, which was kind of like the badge that a lot of co-living companies were kind of like proudly wearing at that moment. For us as architects, as designers, we knew always that it was more about the convenience of it and the fact that it could be more accessible. So creating a space that was pleasant to live in was more important than creating a programming, schedule for people that inhabited these co-living buildings. So even when we're part of kind of like riding that wave, in fact, that is the reason that we met our third partner, Dane. Our approach was always from a design perspective. So in this process, we created our signature micro unit that was the element that caught the developer's attention and prompt them to work with us on several projects in New York. So any shift that happened after that, I will say it's more of an inevitable evolution of the product as we are on a continuous path to look for more efficient ways to make housing that is more affordable. Huh?
Yeah. So it sounds like the things that drew you to co-living, which were like the design and the architecture and like thinking about creating a space where people could live in a dignified, affordable way, is also then what drew you to the work that you're doing now with Madelon, and less so like some of the excitement around co-living with like the programming and the events that those spaces could host. And so you sort of left that behind and continued to stay laser focused on this design aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I mentioned this in the beginning intro, but Madelon has a big focus on offsite construction. And you've shared with me that in your first year, you actually set up the Madelon office next door to a prefab factory in New York. And it sounds like this was very intentional. You and your two co-founders wanted to learn about offsite. So tell me more about what that was like, being in like a little trailer next door to a factory.
Yes, we were located in the Navy Yards. That was a very interesting experience. Prior to that, we were at ADO, this other kind of maker space, also located in Brooklyn, and we were working in Casa Uno at that moment. So we started getting very interested in the technologies. We knew of this building that was built in Brooklyn, in on Atlantic Avenue, and this company, the factory that was in the Navy Yards, was the one that built it. So we engaged with them. We started like telling them what is it that we wanted to do, what were our interests, and all of that. So, and they were very welcoming to us, and we ended up asking them if we could have if they had any space that they could lease to us, for us to set office there, and they gave us this little 1,000 square foot trailer that they had attached to their factory. It was not big, but it was definitely bigger than the other spaces that we have passed through for like 10 at that point 5 years of practice. It was definitely the bigger space that we have been into. And I just think that doing offsite requires a different sort of design approach that we were not familiar with. So for us, it was almost mandatory to be close to them and understand their processes. No, when we were there, we had access to the factory floor, and back then we were always also looking at some development deals in Brooklyn that we were trying to push for them to be prefabricated. So we were meeting with them almost like regularly, to again understand the processes and start that change of mindset from my side. There's a lot of particularities that prefab, especially volumetric prefab, entail. So being there was super helpful to understand these particularities, and then from there we could go out and speak with other factories and almost like already speak their same language, because we knew what the right approach was since the beginning. No, so that's why we got installed there, and we actually took the advantage of that space, and we did some design building ourselves in it. And it was a space where we could meet people from the industry and also host some like salon discussions that at the end were very valuable for us.
At this point, both of us have alluded to these two mysterious other co-founders that you have. So you're chief of architecture, like I mentioned, Alfonso is the CEO, and then Dane is the COO. I'm curious what it's been like having a co-founding team of three.
Well, this worked, I would say, very well for us, having that one more person to break the tie. Always helped us maintain a good relationship, and I would say take the best informed decisions on everything. No, I had been working by then when we formed Madelon. Had been working with Alfonso for like I don't know, 7 years probably. And each one of us have different strengths, no, but also different points of view in things. Mine was always more design oriented. Alfonso had lots of experience developing and building, but also values design a lot. That's why we could sort of like in many ways speak the same language. Dane, on the other hand, had lots of experience in the operations side of housing, so he brought that other perspective that we very much needed. Was essential to help us develop the great products that we did. So having in my perspective, working with them too, and having their insights into everything was invaluable in developing my own perspectives as well. No, so it has been a great experience, and just having the three of us is, I think, having three, it's always a good number. Because again, there's that one person to break the tie.
Yeah, I hadn't considered the tie breaking element. I imagine that's really helpful when making big decisions.
Yeah. And at the end, it was not that, like, it was not really arguments. It was just like we were always bringing different points of view, and a lot of like all of these points of view were valid. But at the end, it helped having one person to kind of like ground all of these points of views and use use another criteria to come to an agreement, no,
Yeah,
on how we
absolutely.
wanted to drive the company.
So I want to shift to talking about the platform itself, which we haven't gotten into too much just yet. So when I first asked you about the platform, you said to me that you put your brains into the platform. So
Yeah.
tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, that was actually a phrase that Dane always used. That he put my brains into the platform. So RedTech is a platform that lets you analyze real estate projects in seconds. No, you talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. It provides an informed insight into a development deal. This is something that is done every day by real estate developers and real estate companies. No, that's what they do every day. Um, they need to somehow be certain of their assumptions, and if they need to be certain if their assumptions are correct and that a deal works. But for them, this can take weeks, even or this can either take weeks or months, and or a bigger team, and a lot of times both. So our CTO helped us codify not only our extensive experience that I mentioned before in the development and design of housing, but also public information that you find on public portals from cities, such as zoning codes, transportation maps, and other key aspects that may have an important impact on the development of housing. For example, government incentives, parking requirements. Uh, it has always been a back and forth between the platform and us. I use the information that I learned and design products within the framework of my learnings. And then our CTO codifies that information and puts it on RedTech. We test several sites with these assumptions and refine them. And voila, at the end of this exercise, anyone with an address can get an informed insight into a housing development deal. And this is possible because we're putting all of this information, both information that is of public access and that we have to interpret, but also our experience as designers in the creation of housing.
So it sounds like you're integrating data from a bunch of different places, including your and Alfonso's own experience developing real estate, getting it all into one place, and by doing so, saving customers, the folks that are actually building housing, a ton of time because they would otherwise have to go to a bunch of different sources to get that information.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
That's
so
right.
Another phrase that I've heard you all use in talking about the platform is this idea that Madelon is productizing development. Can you tell us what that looks like exactly?
Yeah. So we create market-specific products. No, I guess in this industry, it's sort of weird to speak about housing as a product, but we had to kind of like get into that mindset that what we were developing was something that was going to be able to be reproduced like many times, because for us, creating more supply is one of the solutions to the housing crisis that American cities are suffering right now. So what we do is that we study the local zoning and building and development laws of a certain location. We are in constant search for new legislations that incentivize the development of more affordable housing or just housing in general. Many cities have been on a quest in the past few years to provide solutions that will incentivize the creation of more housing, because they have seen what having a lack of housing costs to them. No, homelessness is a big problem in states like California, New York, and Colorado. So there's a lot of cities that are already kind of like have plans in place that are meant to solve this crisis. So we take this information, these legislations, and with all these elements, we bring our design expertise to create products that can be deployed efficiently and at scale. By doing this, we simplify some of the key aspects of the development process, and this allows participants that had previously not had the chance to come into the arena, such as smaller developers or medium-sized developers, local institutions, nonprofit organizations, and communities, to have a stake at what it's developed in their areas. No, so that when we say a productized development, we want to say that we are kind of like creating opening the field to many other players that want to have a positive impact in their communities. And we do this by providing a lot of the information that they had previously didn't have access to, for them to make an informed decision on that development.
Mm-hmm. So as part of that, are you like standardizing the kinds of housing products that you're offering or proposing through the platform?
Exactly. Like when you go into a platform, you just need to put an address. Of course, a developer will put an address, and maybe a developer that has experience and knows the market will already know what kind of building they want. If they want, we have several products. Now we have our multifamily products, which has 1-bedroom units, studios, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units. Our platform can actually mix like the units to have as many 1-bedroom units as you want, or as many as 2-bedroom units as you want. And we have another product that we have is the micro studios, which are all the same. Then we have our low-rise product, which is for buildings that are smaller, maybe up to 4 units. And then we have our ODU product, which are basically even smaller micro studios that are kind of like accommodated within an apartment unit. So for someone that doesn't know what to do, they just know they have a piece of land, or they're interested in acquiring a piece of land to do some housing, we provide them with all of these options, and we tell them, this is our standard product. This is how many units you can do based on the zoning building code of the lot has. And that way we provide them like how much they can get for rents. And then we also provide them like what are the other incentives that the governments do if you do this sort of product. How much parking you need for this. If you do less parking, how many more units you can have, but then how many of these units need to be dedicated to affordable housing. So we provide all of this information for them to make an informed decision. So
Gotcha.
It's kind of like, giving the a panoramic view of what a development deal is, by just putting the address and using our standardized products.
Yeah. So it sounds like this feature would be really, really helpful for smaller developers, maybe that haven't done a lot of projects and
Exactly.
don't have the same kind of experience that a larger, more seasoned developer might have, where they type in an address and know exactly what they can/should/will build there.
Yes.
So makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I want to talk specifically about a project that you're working on right now in Northeast Los Angeles. I know this is something that you all are really excited about. So curious to just learn more about what's going on and why LA, and just a bit more about what this project looks like.
Yeah, we're super excited about this project. I actually love this scale of buildings. It's going to be one of the first projects in LA that uses the ADU law, which that one passed a few years ago, not so long ago, but a few years ago. And then it's going to also combine it with the recently passed SB 9 legislation that was passed last year to densify housing. No, this is one of the attempts that I was saying earlier that states like California are taking to resolve the housing crisis. While we know that the lack of supply is one of the, but while we know that the lack of supply is one of the aspects that has driven many American cities to their big housing problems that they currently have, we believe that there are many different ways to create more supply. No, it doesn't have to be in the form of massive uh, developments, massive multifamily structures. There's actually other ways to do it. And we're very interested in they call the missing middle housing spectrum, which has for long been neglected. So we created Madelon's low-rise product. This product makes a lot of sense in California, where 2/3 of its land that is dedicated for housing is zoned for single family. No, this means that in 2/3 of the residential lots that you have in total in the state, you could previously only do one house, no, so for one family. With the ADU law that changed, you could actually do one extra small unit in the back. So that changed it to two families. Then when they passed the SB9, you could actually split the lot, have one house on each lot, and then have an ADU, which ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit, have one ADU in the back. So that already gave you four houses, no? So now you can house four houses in a lot that was originally meant to house one. And you can house four families in a lot that was originally meant to house one family, no? So this product, we're very excited about this product, and it makes sense that it's in LA. This unlocks lots of potential, no? We're currently working on the first prototype of this in Northeast LA in Eagle Rock. It's currently under design development. We have already speak to the city about what is it that we're trying to do, and everything is set to go.
Wow, that's awesome. So it sounds like you've shared a lot of excitement around this project. You've also said that you are hoping this project can be kind of a prototype for future work, future types of projects that Madelon facilitates. And I know there's also a kind of an environmental sustainability component. So I'm curious if you could talk about the sustainability piece and how and why this can be a prototype for the future for Madelon.
Right. As I said, our early project it's a 4-unit development project on a single family lot. No, that itself is already impactful in terms of the collectivity and sharing of resources that entails. No. But we're really using this project also as a prototype to exercise more sustainable development practices. Literally from the foundations of this project, we are using greener building practices. We're looking into a low impact foundation system for the housing units. This is the system that grounds the units and touches the soil, the natural soil. So we're looking into a technology that is actually much greener than just pouring concrete or other alternatives. While the housing units themselves are going to be built in mass timber, a building technology that is as sustainable as it gets. You cannot be more sustainable than that, other than not building at all. And when it comes to building, mass timber is as sustainable as it gets, especially if you work with mass timber companies that practice responsible cutting of trees and all of that. And we were able to find a company that does that and is willing to work at this scale of a project. It's a technology that is rarely available for this scale of projects. This is just mostly on at least like 4-level units, and now they have I know that in several states they have approved skyscrapers to be done in mass timber. So it was kind of hard to find someone that was interested to work at this scale, but they understood that the scale can also be achieved across multiple sites, not only on one bigger project. No, So as Madelon, we understand the importance of putting sustainability at the forefront of development, and it is projects like this that allow us to test greener technologies while having an impact on the way people live. It's not we're not doing this in a huge project that if any like a single thing goes wrong, like everything is a disaster. I think this scale allows us to test different things and while also run a risk at the end. It's not as risky as bigger buildings. So it makes sense for us that this one is like that.
Yeah, and it's sounding like the project, once completed, will not only serve as a prototype for Madelon moving forward, but I think for sort of the missing middle movement in general, with what infill development can look like, and especially with the sustainability component. So super exciting.
Exactly.
I'm excited to see how the project progresses.
Yeah, me too.
So zooming out just a little bit from your time with Madelon so far, it's a startup. It's been a journey. There's more to come. I'm just curious, kind of what have been some of your biggest learnings or reflections thus far?
Yeah, this might sound as an overstatement, but housing is so important. I mean, we should note that, no, especially as architects, when you go to architecture school, you don't realize the importance that this has in cities. I think it's a tool to measure how innovative a city is. If you want to know that, look at their housing programs. It is something that needs to be done. At the same time, it's something that needs to be done in conjunction with so many players. It cannot be done alone. Of course, there's like the private sector that does housing, and it can have a positive impact and everything. But the fact is that we need so much housing in our cities that it needs to be a collective effort, at least to have the impact that it needs to have at the scale that it needs to happen. And I'm just not talking about affordable housing. I believe that housing needs to be met at every level. I believe that an individual that doesn't need to worry about housing, about having a roof over their head, but also an individual that doesn't have to spend more than half of their salary on rent, or that needs to work extra shifts to make that rent, is an individual that can go out into the community and achieve great things. So providing a solution for one of the most important needs of humans I believe can unlock many other great things. So, and again, that needs to be done at every level, not only at the affordable spectrum of the housing market, but at any level, because at the end, everyone contributes to it's part of these communities, and everyone collectively has to be housed correctly in order to do good things for it.
Yeah, very well said. I couldn't agree more. So for folks that are listening and they are interested in Madelon and they want to get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can go to our website and fill a contact form at madelongroup.com, or send us an email at hello@madelongroup.com. But even I'm going to give you my personal email as well, Joseph, and that's JO is SEPH @madelongroup.com. Hit me up and I'll be happy to get back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joseph. It was great to chat with you and learn more about
Hannah.
Madelon. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. This was great.